Welcome to Inside the PSC, a look at the inner workings of the Public Service Commission of West Virginia. I'm your host, Karen Hall, and today my guest is Mary Friend. She is the director of the Gas Pipeline Safety Division, and we have lots to talk about. But first, we're going to start with a video from our chairman, Charlotte Lane, about why it's a really good idea to consider working for the Public Service Commission.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Lane, Chairman of the West Virginia Public Service Commission. I'm going to be nosy. Are you looking for a job? Are you even thinking about looking for a job? Do you know someone who is looking for a job? If so, I'd like to suggest that you broaden your horizons and consider a career instead. The Public Service Commission of West Virginia has positions open, and we are actively recruiting. Our professional staff includes people with a wide variety of talents and abilities. We hire lawyers, engineers, accountants, secretaries and clerical workers, IT professionals, and police officers. You might find your calling in an office, in the field inspecting gas pipelines, or patrolling the highways for overweight trucks. Whether you are a recent graduate or a seasoned professional who is looking for a change, we hope you will consider the Public Service Commission. Our employees enjoy full state benefits such as health insurance, including vision and dental, paid leave, a retirement program, and an education reimbursement program. We offer a safe and supportive work environment, opportunities for advancement, and the bonus of being able to serve the people of West Virginia. To see what positions are currently available, go to our website at www.psc.state.wv.us and click on Employment Opportunities. Positions are posted for a limited time, but will be reposted if not filled, so check back often. And if you have a feeling that the Public Service Commission might be the right place for you, go ahead and send in your resume in care of our HR manager. Who knows, this might be your lucky day and ours.
And we hope you will consider working for the Public Service Commission. We're very interested in having people of all kinds of talents that we use at the Commission. And one very specialized talent is that which Mary Friend brings to the table. Mary, you are the director of the Public Service Commission's Gas Pipeline Safety Division, and keeping gas pipelines safe, that is a huge undertaking. Can you tell me a little bit, let's start out by telling me a little bit about what exactly you regulate.
Well, we regulate about a little over 17,000 miles of gas transmission, gas gathering, hazardous liquid transmission, hazardous liquid gathering, and distribution, gas distribution pipelines in the state of West Virginia. A large amount of the pipelines in the state are regulated by us, but there are a lot that aren't.
Okay, now one of the questions that you and I were actually talking about before, the ones that are not regulated by the PSC, are they regulated by other agencies?
So let me give you a little history, if you don't mind.
Please do.
Natural Gas Act of 1968 is what actually brought the gas pipeline or the pipeline industry under federal regulations. And in 1968, the rule said that they could actually govern from the bottom of a well to the burner tip. But they chose not to regulate everything. They chose to say, for example, in-house piping is already covered by an entity, therefore we're not going to regulate that. We're not going to regulate downhole. So we're only going to regulate certain pipelines. And over the course of the 50-some years that the pipelines have been regulated, they have added more and more pipelines. So we regulate inter and interstate, intrastate pipelines, and then most of the gathering lines. But there are a large number of gathering lines and production lines that are not regulated.
Okay, now I know that you work very closely with PHMSA, which is the Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration. For those who don't know, it's part of the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Yeah,
is that correct?
U.S. Department of Transportation.
So What prompted the federal regulation of those lines?
So the federal regulations, there were several events that prompted that.
Okay.
Actually, the first pipeline safety regulation occurred in 1937. There was a school explosion down in Texas where the school had attached to a production well. The gas was unodorized, gas leaked into the building, the school exploded, and there were over 300 individuals that were killed in that explosion. This actually prompted the state of Texas to pass the first pipeline safety law in the country, which required any gas carried in the state of Texas to be odorized. Natural gas by itself is unodorized, lighter than air, you can't smell it. So by adding that, what we call the skunk odor, or that malodorous odor, allows people to say, wait a minute, I've got a gas leak. So most gas at this point that's transported within distribution systems has to be odorized because of that event back in 1937. But the one that really prompted the rule change in '68 was an event in 1967 down in Louisiana where a 32-inch pipeline exploded and killed 17 individuals and wounded or injured a number of others. And that's really what prompted the government to take action. Prior to that point, the regulations were all voluntary. They were standards that were available, but the standards weren't enforced by everybody. So PHMSA, or its predecessors, actually took those regulations, those standards, and adopted them into the rules. The rules were rolled out in 1970 for natural gas. They were rolled out a little bit later for hazardous liquid, and they have been amended any number of times since then. I think the gas rule has been amended 135 times to add new regulations or change regulations as the industry evolves.
Well, and that makes sense because I think things change pretty rapidly in that industry.
They can.
Now, I know that we regulate on a state level. Does PHMSA provide guidelines to the different states, or?
So there are interstate pipelines, which are actually by definition pipelines that are certificated by FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Those are handled by PHMSA themselves. There's about 6,000 miles, I believe, in the state of West Virginia that are inspected by PHMSA. The Mountain Valley Pipeline, which has been the source of a lot of contention, is regulated by PHMSA. It is not regulated by the Public Service Commission. But federal law allows the PHMSA to delegate the authority to state agencies. So the state agency that was formed in 1970, 1971 was associated with the Public Service Commission. And yes, I have a 100-page guideline that I have to follow. One of the other interesting things a lot of people don't know is just like we inspect operators, PHMSA comes and inspects us every year. So they come and review the program, make sure we're doing the inspections we're supposed to be doing, make sure that my folks are properly trained. They make sure that we're taking care of business. And theoretically, they could pull our authority if they so chose.
Wow. Well, apparently you're doing things right because so far here you are.
That's correct.
And I'm really glad for that because I want to know that the pipelines that are around us are safe. Okay, now you were talking about different kinds of interstate, intrastate. There are
Correct.
gathering lines. Some are regulated, some are not. Can you walk me through the difference between those?
The original pipeline safety regulations were based on public safety.
Okay.
So what we're always looking for public safety is population adjacent to the pipelines. Obviously, a distribution system that's located in a town has a lot of population next to it, but the larger transmission lines may run cross-country. So we're always looking for places where population is adjacent to the pipelines. So originally, it was based on the size of the population there, number of houses, number of apartments that were adjacent. And the regulations then say, as the population goes up, the safety factors, I'm trying to think how I want to say that, the safety factors increase. So you can operate a pipeline that doesn't have a lot of population at a higher pressure then you might be able to operate a pipeline that has a large population next to it. You're going to have that at a lower pressure. So that's what has always driven the regulations. Here recently, PHMSA has added, in 2006, they added gathering lines to the regulations. Prior to then, PHMSA has chosen not to regulate gathering lines.
Okay.
But the gathering lines then were based on the pressures and population adjacent to them. Back in 2002, they added a whole bunch of new pipelines to the regulations. Back in 2006, when the rules were created for gathering lines, they never envisioned the Marcellus Shale. And a lot of the Marcellus lines are large diameter, high pressure lines, actually operating at pressures higher than the transmission lines in the state of West Virginia. And so the idea was to protect those individuals who live along those pipelines as well.
Okay, okay. Now, for those of us who speak in layman's terms, please tell me exactly what is a gathering line.
A gathering line is those pipelines that take gas from the wells, gather it together, often through a compressor station, and then that's put into a transmission system, which carries it from point A to point B. So gathering lines are exactly what they say. They gather the gas together from the wells.
Okay, okay. Now, I know that you spoke earlier about PHMSA watching carefully how well your people are trained and how they're doing the inspections. I know from things that you and I have talked about in the past, your guys go through a lot of training. Can you tell the public
Sure.
what that involves?
Sure, I'm really glad to explain that because
Okay.
I think a lot of people think anybody can walk in and do it. And that's not necessarily true. Most of my inspectors came to the division with some experience, which actually helps because you're not having to learn a whole new language. But they're required to take 6 or 7 original classes before they are allowed to perform inspections by themselves. And those classes are held out in Oklahoma City. Most of them are a week long on specialized topics. And they have to pass all of those before they can start performing inspections. After they pass those original 7, there's another 14 specialized classes that they can take. And in order to be fully qualified, you have to take all those classes.
Wow. That's a lot of training. How long would it take for someone to complete like a full series of training?
It's going to depend a little bit on the individual. Some of the guys who came in with more experience, it's easier for them to slide in. Typically, you're allowed 3 years to get through that first initial 6 or 7 classes. After that, it's a choice of whether or not you want to take additional classes. I will say that not all my inspectors are trained on the same topics because we just don't have enough need for everybody to be trained. So I have 2 or 3 maybe trained on one topic. I may have 2 or 3 that are trained on another topic, but everybody has that base training.
Okay. Well, it sounds like that would make sense too because you sort of cross-train. You've got people who specialize in different things.
And they come to me with different training too.
True.
Not everybody has the same likes and dislikes. Other people, some people prefer to look at this topic, others another. And so they come to me with a specialized background. I want to use that.
The ALJs, the law judges who hear many of the cases. So let's take a look.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Lane, Chairman of the West Virginia Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission includes more than me and my fellow commissioners. In addition to the 3 of us, the agency has lawyers, accountants, and engineers who contribute specialized skills to the overall effort. One group that you might come in contact with if you ever file a formal complaint is our Administrative Law Judges Division. The Commission has 6 judges along with 1 hearing examiner who focuses on coal transportation cases. The commissioners rely on the judges in the ALJ division to carry part of the overall caseload. Most consumer complaints and many requests from utilities are referred to the judges for review. Our technical staff members file a recommendation on what action should be taken in each case. The judge assigned to the case receives the staff recommendation as well as filings from the parties. Often our judges and hearing examiner first act as mediators in formal cases. In mediation, the judge doesn't conduct a formal hearing, but organizes a conference call with the parties to attempt to work out a dispute informally. Many formal complaints are quickly resolved through this process. When the parties do not agree, the judge schedules an evidentiary hearing. These hearings are usually held in the county where the parties are located. The judges travel throughout the state for these hearings, which are similar to bench trials in civil court. After the hearing, the judge writes a formal decision based on the evidence. After a specified time, the recommended decision becomes the final order unless a party files an exception or requests a direct review by the commission. While I hope that you never have to file a complaint to resolve a dispute with your utility, the Commission and its judges are available to decide your case when needed.
So if you ever happen to meet the administrative law judges, know that they will take very good care of you. We're back again talking with Mary Friend, who is the Division Director of the Gas Pipeline Safety Division at the Public Service Commission. We were talking about how your inspectors are trained. How many inspectors do you have on staff?
Currently, we have 6. We have 1 vacancy, so that video about looking for people to come and work is great. But we have 6, variety of people who come to me with a lot of, already have worked for the gas companies, so they come to work for us. We have some engineers, so a variety of backgrounds.
Very good, very good. Now, you mentioned the Mountain Valley Pipeline earlier, and that's really been in the news a lot over the past few years. I know there was a lot of controversy about where it was sited and whether it was actually going to be allowed to be operated,
Correct.
all of those things. Does the Public Service Commission have anything to do with how a pipeline like that is sited, how it's routed, where it goes?
So the Mountain Valley Pipeline was certificated by FERC.
Okay.
So it is considered an interstate pipeline and it falls under PHMSA. But within our regulations, and even within the United States regulations, the pipeline safety laws, that we have no authority over siting of pipelines. We can't dictate where the pipelines go. So while we look at the construction and the materials, we cannot dictate the location of the pipelines.
Okay, okay. That's really interesting because I know we get calls about that and people saying, well, why are you doing that? And we're not.
We're not, and it's very specific in our regulations that we have no authority over siting.
Okay. Now, I know that safety is, well, it's in the very name of your division. Safety is such a huge issue anytime you're dealing with the transmission of gas. You talk a lot about the necessity and the importance of calling 811 before someone digs. We've been talking about this big picture. So I'd like to narrow it down a little bit and say this is what matters to homeowners. So calling 811 before you dig, how does that work? Why is it important?
Well, it's important because many years ago, probably in the early 1990s, PHMSA, in looking at the cause of incidents and events that may have caused fatalities or injuries along the pipeline, discovered that a lot of them were related to contractors or excavators digging into gas lines. And it's probably a little more dangerous for gas than it is for hazardous liquids, because you put a hole in a hazardous liquid line and the liquid flows out. But when you have natural gas, of course, it escapes into the atmosphere. It can ignite and cause the fireball that we often think of when we think of a natural gas event. So the importance became that PHMSA wanted to reduce the amount of damages to pipelines by third-party contractors. So they developed this one-call law, or one-call rule. And what the rule requires is anybody who is going to dig in the state of West Virginia needs to call one call 48 hours before they dig. And that's as long as you're digging less than 12 inches, you don't have to call. So you can plow your garden, you can dig small, you can plant shrubs and not worry about it. But if you're actually putting in big trees, you're putting in new patios, you're putting in water lines, whatever, you need to call 811 48 hours beforehand. It's a free service for homeowners. It doesn't cost a thing. They will then route that information to the various underground utilities. So it's not just gas pipelines. It will also include the water lines. It includes buried communications lines, the sewer lines. It will route the information to those so they can come and mark it. So if you ever see that rainbow, that I call it, in front of the house with the green and the yellow and the blue, it means somebody has been there to mark the lines because somebody's going to excavate.
And I know that's very true because they've been at my house recently. Another thing that we have talked about in the past is, what do people do if they smell gas?
Well, now that's kind of an interesting story because I was out recently walking and smelled gas. And it took me several trips by there because the guy had just put in new mulch. And new mulch has an odor to it. But I finally one day earlier this week walked by and, yeah, that's natural gas. So I called the gas company. And I said, I smell gas. This is where I smell it. They came out and they surveyed to make sure that there is gas present. They will use gas detectors. They may put small holes in the pavement or in the ground to see if they can determine and pinpoint where the gas leak is. And then once they determine there's a gas leak, they will come back and repair it in some sort of time frame.
Okay. But now if you're in your house or if you're in a public place and you smell gas, do you stop and call the gas company?
You need to leave first.
Okay.
Particularly if the odor's strong, you need to walk away. What you're trying to do is prevent any ignition of gas. Now, gas has that odor added,
right,
and you can smell it at actually 1% gas and air. The lower explosive limit of gas is at 5% gas and air. So you're going to smell it well before it becomes explosive. But walk away. You can either call the gas company or you can call 911 and report the gas odor because the 911 will turn around and call the gas companies.
Okay, that's very helpful to know because I think that's probably a situation that people would be in more likely than experiencing it out in public or something of that nature.
You'd be surprised, and I've actually done that. I've been in some fast food restaurants and smelled gas and have left and called the gas company and said, you need to.
Do you try to get other people to leave too?
I usually make some comment about the gas, but it's not, I can't make people leave. All I can do is...
You're not the gas police?
I'm not the gas police, no. Okay. I will say I can smell gas. I'll mention that, but I just leave.
Okay. Now, I know there have been incidents with pipelines since you've been with the commission. Can you tell us briefly about some of your experiences with that?
Well, unfortunately, incidents still happen. The goal is to go to zero incidents, but it's unfortunately things happen that we have no control over. So probably the incident most people remember was actually before my time, but that was the Sissonville event.
Oh, yeah.
But the Sissonville event actually changed regulations. PHMSA wrote some additional regulations and created a new type of area that requires a periodic assessment of the pipe and the integrity of the pipe. So those events with incidents often will change regulations. And we can go back and point to any number of incidents where the event happened and regulations have changed and gotten stricter.
Okay, now I know that you said before that your people don't actually go out and walk those lines. Is there someone who does?
The gas companies do.
Oh,
They're-
okay.
They're responsible for walking their lines, looking for leaks, looking for encroachments. What you want to do is you want to keep people away, hence the 811 and call before you dig.
Right.
So they're responsible for ensuring the safety of their lines, and we're just checking the records to make sure they've done those inspections like they're required
Okay.
to.
And I know another thing that, actually thinking back to another one of the chairman's videos that she did last year, talking about hunters who are out in the woods and they may smell gas or they may see a water leak or something that people wouldn't normally run into, and that they should report that.
So in pipelines, most gas pipelines are marked with line markers.
Okay.
So you can find a line marker. The line marker is going to tell you the product that's carried in the line, usually have a gas company name and a gas company phone number. So you can take that number down, take a picture of it, and the picture then gives you the exact location where you are and come back and call it in. But yes, people in the public can, if they find that those leaking things, should report them.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Mary, I appreciate so much that you joined us today for this talk.
Well, thank you for having me.
It's been an absolute delight, and I hope that everyone who's watching has enjoyed it. I hope that you will join us again next time for another episode of Inside the PSC.